The restaurant was filled with soft music, the sound of glasses clinking, and quiet conversations. Everyone seemed relaxed and happy. But the atmosphere changed the moment Mr. Grayson walked in. He was a man people recognized immediately, not only because of his wealth but because of his reputation. He was one of the richest men in the city, a man who could buy anything he wanted, a man who owned companies, buildings, and even had politicians visiting his office. But he was also known for his short temper. When something did not go his way, he would not hide his anger. People said he could ruin a man's career with a single phone call, and that made even the boldest people afraid of him. The staff of the restaurant had been preparing since morning, polishing the tables twice, checking the wine collection 3 times, and instructing everyone to be extra careful. They knew Mr. Grayson was coming. The manager had reminded them again and again that nothing should go wrong. But even with all the care in the world, life does not always move according to plan, and sometimes, one small delay is enough to start a storm. When Mr. Grayson entered, the waiters rushed to greet him. They bowed slightly, pulled out his chair, and smiled nervously. He looked around with sharp eyes, as if searching for a mistake, and then sat down slowly. The restaurant felt silent for a moment, like everyone was holding their breath. Once he was seated, he tapped his fingers impatiently on the table, his gold watch catching the light. He hated waiting, even for a second. He believed time was money, and for him, money was the most valuable thing in life. Minutes passed, and the waitress who was supposed to serve him had not yet arrived. Other staff members looked around anxiously. The manager whispered in the corner, asking where she was. But before anyone could respond, Mr. Grayson's face grew darker, his jaw tightened, and his tapping grew louder. He looked around and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Is this what you call service? Making me wait like some ordinary man?" People at nearby tables turned to look, some in curiosity, some in fear. The staff froze. They knew this was bad. Finally, the waitress hurried toward his table, her cheeks red, her breathing uneven. She had clearly rushed from the kitchen with his order, but she was a few minutes late, and that was all it took to ignite his fury. She placed the tray on the table carefully, whispering an apology. "I am sorry for the delay, sir," but her soft words only seemed to anger him more. He slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. "Sorry?" he shouted, his voice cutting through the room. "Do you think sorry pays for my wasted time? Do you know who I am? I do not wait. People wait for me, and you dare to walk in here late, with no respect for your job, no respect for your customer?" The poor waitress stood frozen, her hands trembling slightly, her eyes lowered. She tried to nod, tried to speak again, but the words would not come. The humiliation of being shouted at in front of so many people burned inside her. But she kept quiet. Her silence only made him angrier. "Look at me when I speak to you," he demanded. "Do not stand there like a statue. You think this is acceptable? You think I should forgive such carelessness?" Other guests shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Some whispered. A few shook their heads. They were embarrassed for her. But none dared to interfere. After all, he was the billionaire, and they were just ordinary people who could not risk his anger falling on them too. The manager stepped forward nervously, trying to calm the situation. "Sir, please, it will not happen again. Allow me to handle this." But Mr. Grayson waved him away with cold eyes. "Do not tell me what will or will not happen. If this is how you run a restaurant, you will be closed within a year. I could buy this place and fire every one of you before tomorrow." The waitress finally whispered again, her voice barely audible. "It was not intentional, sir. I truly apologize." Her face flushed with shame, her eyes glistening with tears she was trying to hide. But Mr. Grayson showed no sign of softening. His anger seemed to grow with every second. He leaned forward, his voice lower but sharper. "If you cannot do the simplest task, maybe you should not be working here at all." For him, it was just another outburst, another reminder of his power. But for her, it was one of the most painful moments of her life. She had only been late by a few minutes, but in those minutes, he had crushed her spirit in front of strangers. The weight of his words pressed heavily on her chest. She wanted to disappear, to run away, but she stood there, forcing herself to endure it because she needed the job, she needed the money to survive. And so, in that elegant restaurant, under the soft light of chandeliers, a billionaire's voice echoed louder than the music, louder than the laughter of guests, his anger filling the air. his pride towering above everyone else, while a young waitress stood quietly, her dignity bruised, her heart pounding, never knowing that within moments, the very necklace around her neck would change everything, and turn his anger into something he could never have imagined. Anna stood there with her tray still, trembling in her hands, the weight of the billionaire's words pressing down on her like heavy stones. She tried to breathe steadily, but every breath felt sharp. Her throat burned from holding back tears. She wanted to vanish, to melt into the floor so no one could see her shame. But she could not, because she needed this job. She needed the paycheck at the end of the week. Without it, her family would have nothing. She forced herself to keep her head down, hoping he would stop shouting, hoping the manager would step in again. But silence filled the room except for the faint clinking of glasses from another table. Customers were pretending to look at their menus, but she could feel their eyes on her. Some looked pitying, some judgmental, and that made her humiliation even deeper. She had never wanted attention. Not like this. She had taken this job to earn quietly, to blend into the background. But tonight, the richest man in the city had dragged her into the spotlight. Anna had not chosen to be late. In fact, she had been running since the moment her shift started. One table had spilled a drink, another had complained about their meal, and she had tried to handle it all with patience. She thought she could still make it in time to serve Mr. Grayson. But then the kitchen delayed the order, and she had been the one to take the blame. She bit her lip hard as she thought about it, because life had always been unfair to her, and she was used to being the one who carried the blame even when it was not her fault. Her childhood had been a series of hardships. Her father had walked out on her family when she was just a girl, leaving her mother to raise her and her younger brother alone. Money was always short, food sometimes scarce. She had grown up quickly, learning how to work, how to stretch a few coins to buy bread and milk. When her mother became sick, Anna took on every small job she could find, cleaning houses, babysitting, carrying groceries, anything that brought in a little income. And when this restaurant hired her, she thought maybe, just maybe, her life was turning around. The pay was better, the place more respectable. But now she was standing under the cruel fire of a billionaire's anger, being treated as though she were worthless. Her hands trembled more as she tried to place the dishes on his table. She was terrified she might drop something, and that would make everything worse. She whispered another apology, but her voice cracked, betraying the tears she was fighting back. She saw the smirk of another waiter in the corner, not because he enjoyed her pain, but because he knew how it felt. He too had once been shouted at, humiliated in front of everyone. This was the fate of the powerless when someone rich and impatient wanted to show strength. Inside her heart, though, Anna repeated to herself that she would not break. She had faced too much in life already. Too many nights going to bed hungry. Too many mornings walking miles just to get to school. Too many jobs where people treated her like she was invisible. She would not allow herself to cry here. Not in front of this man who believed money gave him the right to crush people. She clenched her fists at her sides. Though she kept her head bowed, her silence was not only fear, it was survival. Still, she could not stop the thoughts rushing through her mind. She wondered what kind of life a man like Mr. Grayson must have lived, so full of power and pride that he forgot other people had feelings. Did he ever know what it was like to worry about rent, to watch a mother cough through the night because medicine was too expensive, to eat the same bread every day because meat was a luxury? No, she thought he probably never knew that kind of life, and maybe that was why he could not understand her. The room remained tense, the guests waiting to see what would happen next. Some of them whispered to each other. A woman at the far table muttered that it was cruel to yell at a young girl like that, but she said it so softly no one else could hear. No one dared to defend Anna openly. After all, this was a billionaire, and who would risk offending him? So Anna stood alone, isolated by fear, trapped by her need for this job, swallowing her pride because survival mattered more than dignity. When she finally stepped back from the table, her legs felt weak, her body heavy. She walked toward the corner of the restaurant, pretending to check on another table. Her face turned away so no one could see the tears welling in her eyes. She wanted to wipe them quickly, but the sting in her chest would not fade. She thought of her little brother waiting at home, probably finishing the leftovers she had packed for him. She thought of her mother who often asked, "Are you doing okay at work, Anna?" And she would always smile and say yes, because she did not want to worry her. But tonight, she wondered if she could keep lying. The billionaire's voice still echoed in her head, sharp and merciless. She felt as though his words had branded her. "Maybe you should not be working here at all," he had said. But what choice did she have? If she walked out of this job, her family would suffer, the bills would pile up, and she had no safety net, no one to lean on. She had to endure this humiliation for them, and that thought gave her just enough strength to keep standing, just enough strength to pick up the next order and continue serving tables as though nothing had happened. But deep inside, she carried the pain, the sense of injustice, the exhaustion of always being at the mercy of people who looked down on her. She could not know that fate was about to turn, that the necklace she wore so casually, a gift she had cherished for years, would suddenly become the reason this powerful man's voice would falter, the reason his pride would crumble, and the reason her life would never be the same again. Mr. Grayson leaned back in his chair, still fuming, his face tight with irritation. He lifted his glass of water and took a slow sip, trying to calm his nerves. The waitress had stepped aside, but his anger had not disappeared. He was the kind of man who carried pride like armor, and he hated being made to wait, hated being made to feel like anyone could waste even a second of his time. But just as he placed the glass down and looked at the plates before him, his sharp eyes caught a glimmer, a tiny sparkle that made him pause. For the first time that evening his anger stopped mid-flow. The sparkle came from around the waitress's neck, a necklace, simple but elegant, resting against her collarbone. It was nothing like the flashy jewelry wealthy women wore to show off. This piece was delicate, modest, yet beautiful, and something about it struck him like lightning. His breath caught. His fingers froze on the edge of the table. His heart skipped in a way that had nothing to do with rage. He knew that necklace. He had seen it before, held it in his hands years ago in a moment that now rushed back to him with painful clarity. It was not just any necklace. It was the one he had given to his daughter Lily on her 16th birthday. He could still remember the day clearly. The way her eyes had lit up when he opened the velvet box. The way she had hugged him tightly and whispered, "Thank you, Papa. I'll treasure it forever." At that time he had promised her the world, promised he would always protect her. But life had not kept those promises. His choices, his pride, his obsession with work and wealth had driven her away. And one day she left, slamming the door behind her, and he had not seen her since. Now, years later, the same necklace hung around the neck of a waitress, a stranger, a young woman he had just humiliated in front of an entire restaurant. His mind spun with questions. How could she have it? Why did she have it? Had she stolen it, or had someone sold it? Or his chest tightened. Had his daughter given it to her? He leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked on the small chain, his anger forgotten for a moment, replaced by confusion, doubt, and a growing unease. The waitress, Anna, shifted nervously under his gaze. She could feel his eyes burning into her but did not understand why. She thought he was still angry, maybe ready to scold her again. So she kept her head bowed, clutching her tray against her chest. But the billionaire was no longer looking at her face. He was staring at the necklace, at the little charm that dangled from it. A charm shaped like a tiny silver star, scratched at the edges but still shining. Exactly as he remembered. Memories rushed through his mind like a flood. He saw Lily wearing that necklace at family dinners, wearing it when she laughed at his jokes, wearing it the night they argued and she cried, telling him he cared more about money than about her. The memory stung. He had shouted back then too, just like he shouted at the waitress tonight, and maybe that was why she had walked out of his life. Maybe that was why she never came back. His throat tightened, and for the first time in years he felt something heavy inside him, heavier than pride, heavier than wealth. It was guilt. He rubbed his forehead, trying to think clearly. He told himself it could not be the same necklace. It was impossible. There must be thousands of similar ones in the world. But deep down he knew. It was too unique, too personal. The small engraving at the back. He could see it when the waitress turned slightly. The faint initials LG, carved into the silver, Lily Grayson. His daughter. The truth struck him hard, like a blow to the chest. His eyes softened in spite of himself. The anger drained out of his face, leaving something else. Something the staff had never seen in him before. A trace of vulnerability. The billionaire who barked orders, who scared managers and employees, suddenly looked like a man fighting to breathe. He could not stop staring, his mind desperate to understand how this stranger could be connected to his daughter. The waitress noticed his strange silence. She felt even more nervous now, not knowing what she had done to change his mood so suddenly. Mr. Grayson's fork hovered above his plate, untouched, his appetite gone. He leaned back, his thoughts racing. Was this girl somehow related to Lily? Had she known her? Had she met her after she left home? He wanted to ask, but his pride held him back. How could he go from shouting at her to questioning her gently? How could he reveal that the mighty billionaire was shaken by a piece of jewelry? He clenched his fists under the table, trying to gather his courage, trying to decide whether to speak or stay silent. The room around him continued as usual, guests whispering, waiters moving, glasses clinking, but for Mr. Grayson, the world had shrunk to that necklace, that delicate chain carrying all the weight of his past. He realized how strange fate could be, how in one moment of rage he could nearly destroy a young woman's spirit, and in the next moment she could remind him of the one person he had lost and loved most. It was almost cruel, almost unbelievable, and yet it was real. It was there in front of his eyes. He could not take it any longer. He leaned forward and spoke, his voice lower, more controlled than before. "Where did you get that necklace?" His question made Anna freeze. She blinked in confusion, unsure if she had heard correctly. She looked up slowly, her eyes wide. "This necklace, sir?" she asked softly, touching it gently with her fingers. He nodded, his gaze fixed firmly on it, his voice urgent now. "Yes, that necklace. Tell me, where did you get it?" Anna hesitated, her heart beating faster. She did not expect such a question. For her, the necklace was precious, a gift with deep meaning, and not something she wanted to explain to a man who had just humiliated her. But his eyes, though intense, no longer looked angry. They looked desperate, searching, like he needed her answer more than anything. She swallowed hard, unsure of what to say, her mind racing between caution and honesty. She touched the silver star again, and whispered, "It was given to me by someone very dear." Mr. Grayson's chest tightened at her words. He leaned closer, his hands gripping the edge of the table. He wanted to shout again, to demand the full story, but he held back. His voice trembled slightly as he asked, Who gave it to you?" At that moment, everything else faded away. The restaurant, the people, the noise. All that remained was the fragile thread connecting a billionaire and a waitress, and the necklace that carried the shadow of a daughter lost. Mr. Grayson's eyes would not move away from the necklace, no matter how hard he tried. It was as if the small silver star pulled him into another time, another life, one where things had been different, one where his daughter Lily was still by his side, smiling, laughing, and calling him Papa in that sweet voice of hers. He blinked slowly, but instead of the restaurant in front of him, he saw the past playing in his mind like an old film he could never forget. He remembered the day he bought the necklace. He had walked into one of the most expensive jewelry stores in the city, not because he needed to show off, but because he wanted something special for her 16th birthday. He had asked the jeweler for something simple, something elegant, because Lily had never been like the other girls in her circle. She did not care about flashy diamonds or giant pearls. She liked small things, delicate things, things that carried meaning. When the jeweler showed him the silver star, his heart knew it was perfect. He had even asked them to engrave her initials at the back, LG, so that it would always be hers, and only hers. The memory of her birthday rose up fresh in his mind. He could see her sitting at the long dining table, balloons tied to the chairs, the cake glowing with candles. She had been surrounded by friends and cousins, her laughter filling the room. When he handed her the small velvet box, her eyes had widened. She opened it slowly, and when she saw the necklace, her face lit up brighter than the candles. "Papa, it's beautiful," she had whispered, and she threw her arms around him in front of everyone. It was one of those rare moments where she forgot to act shy and just showed her love openly. And in that moment, he had felt like the proudest father in the world. But then other memories came, darker ones, and they cut through him like sharp knives. He remembered the arguments, the slammed doors, the angry words that could never be taken back. Lily had grown older, and with age had come questions about why he was never home, why he always seemed to care more about meetings, money, and his empire than about her. She would beg him to come to her school events, to join her for dinner without rushing off to answer phone calls. But most of the time he failed. He always thought he was doing it for her, building a future of wealth and security, but she did not want wealth, she wanted him. The last fight was the one that haunted him most. He could still hear her voice breaking as she shouted, You don't care about me, you only care about money? And he, in his pride and anger, had shouted back, You are ungrateful, you have everything and still you complain. Those words had silenced her, and then she had walked out, tears streaming down her face, the necklace still around her neck, swinging gently as she turned away. He thought she would come back. He thought time would heal everything, but the days turned into months, and the months into years, sitting there in the restaurant, watching a stranger wear that same necklace. His heart ached with the weight of regret. He wondered where she had gone, what kind of life she had lived, whether she had been happy without him, whether she had ever forgiven him. He had all the money in the world, but none of it could buy back the moments he had lost, the dinners he had skipped, the hugs he had missed, the apologies he had never spoken. His chest tightened as he realized how blind he had been, how much he had traded away for power and pride. The waitress, Anna, stood quietly a few feet away, unaware of the storm of memories she had stirred inside him. To her, the necklace was simply a gift, a piece of kindness passed down to her. But for him, it was a key, unlocking every locked door of his past. He remembered Lily's smile, her stubbornness, her soft heart, and her fiery temper that matched his own. He remembered how she used to sneak into his office late at night just to sit on the leather chair and spin around, laughing, and how he used to pretend to be annoyed but secretly loved it. These small details came back to him now, stabbing him with longing. He realized he had never stopped loving her, no matter how many years had passed, no matter how hard his exterior had grown. Beneath the billionaire's pride was still a father's heart, broken and waiting, and this necklace was proof that she had carried a piece of him with her. Even when she had left, the thought made his eyes sting. He clenched his fists under the table, trying to hide the emotions from the watching guests, but his face betrayed him, his lips pressed tight, his jaw trembling. Slightly, he felt weaker than he ever had in any boardroom, any deal, any fight, because this was a battle he had already lost. The restaurant noise faded from his ears. He barely noticed the music or the people around him. He was trapped inside his own memories, drowning in them. For years he had pushed thoughts of Lily away, telling himself it was her choice to leave, telling himself he was too busy to dwell on the past. But now, with one glance at that necklace, every wall he had built inside him crumbled, and all that was left was pain, regret, and a desperate hunger for answers. He wanted to know how this young waitress had it. He wanted to know if Lily had been close to her, if Lily had spoken about him, if she had hated him until the end, or if, somewhere deep inside, she had still loved him. The questions burned inside him, and he knew he could not leave this place until he heard the truth. His pride was gone, his anger forgotten. He was no longer the billionaire who shouted at staff. He was just a father, broken and searching for the last piece of his daughter he could still reach. And as he stared at the necklace, he whispered inside his heart words he had never said out loud, words Lily had longed to hear. I'm sorry. I should have been there. I should have chosen you over everything else. But of course, she could not hear him now, only the waitress standing before him, unknowingly holding the last bridge between his past and his future, and with trembling hands, he prepared himself to ask the questions that might finally reveal what had happened to his daughter. Mr. Grayson's voice came out lower than anyone expected, almost calm, but there was an urgency in it that could not be hidden. Tell me, he said, his eyes fixed on the necklace. Where did you get that? The waitress froze, her heart beating wildly. She thought he was still angry, maybe finding a new reason to scold her. She hesitated, looking down at the little silver star that rested against her skin. She touched it softly with her fingers, as if to protect it. It was the one thing in her life she held dearest, a gift that carried memories of kindness, and she was not ready to share its story with a man who had just humiliated her. But Mr. Grayson leaned forward, his sharp tone gone, replaced by something desperate. Please, answer me. He pressed, his eyes not leaving the chain. The whole restaurant seemed to lean closer, the guests curious, the staff confused. The billionaire who had just been shouting now looked strangely shaken, his face pale, his eyes searching, as if that necklace held the answer to a question that had haunted him for years. Anna shifted uncomfortably. She could feel the weight of his stare, the silence around her. She wanted to escape, to walk away and continue serving tables. But something in his eyes made her stop. They no longer looked cruel or cold. They looked broken, wounded. And in spite of everything, she felt a strange pull to answer. She whispered quietly, "It was given to me." "By who?" Mr. Grayson asked quickly, his voice trembling slightly. He sounded less like a powerful man demanding answers and more like a father clinging to hope. Anna looked at him, unsure whether she should tell him. Part of her wanted to stay silent. This necklace was personal. The story behind it too close to her heart. But another part of her knew she could not lie. She took a deep breath and said softly, "By a woman, someone very dear to me." The words hit him hard. He felt his pulse quicken. A woman. Could it be her? Could it be Lily? His throat went dry. He forced the next question out. What was her name? Anna's fingers curled around the chain tightly, her eyes filled with sadness. Her name was Lily? She whispered, and the sound of it nearly shattered him. It was his daughter's name. The name he had not heard spoken aloud in years. For a moment, he could not breathe. He gripped the edge of the table as if to steady himself, his chest heavy with shock and grief. Anna saw the change in him, the way his shoulders slumped, the way his eyes glistened. She did not understand why her words had such an effect. She thought maybe he had known Lily too. Maybe he had some connection. But she did not yet realize the full truth. She continued speaking, her voice trembling. She was like family to me. When I was younger, when things were hard, she helped me. She gave me kindness when I had nothing, and before she left this world, she gave me this necklace, she told me to keep it, to remember her. Mr. Grayson's heart twisted at her words. Left this world. The phrase echoed in his ears, his mind reeled. He did not want to believe it, but he understood. His daughter, his Lily, was gone. The necklace was not just a reminder of her. It was the last piece she had left behind. He closed his eyes for a moment, fighting back the pain that threatened to spill out of him in front of strangers. The mighty billionaire who once believed nothing could break him now sat on the edge of collapse, because of a simple silver chain and the truth it carried. He forced himself to speak, his voice husky. "Tell me about her, please." Anna hesitated again. This man had shouted at her, humiliated her, and now he was asking for pieces of her most precious memories. But she saw the sincerity in his face, the raw pain, and she could not refuse. She nodded slowly. She was kind, more kind than anyone I had ever met. I was just a scared girl then. My mother was sick, my brother too young, we had no one. But Lily, she helped us, she gave me food, she listened. When I cried, she made me feel like I mattered. Each word was a knife and a bomb at the same time for Mr. Grayson. To hear that his daughter had shown love and compassion while he had been too busy with boardrooms and deals, it broke him. Yet it also filled him with pride. She had grown into someone extraordinary, even without him, maybe because she had escaped the shadow of his pride. His eyes watered as he asked softly, Did she ever speak of her father?" Anna lowered her gaze, unsure how much to say. She remembered the nights. Lily would look out the window, her voice heavy with sorrow. She would speak of a man she once loved deeply but who had disappointed her. A man she could not forgive, but also a man she could never stop missing. Anna hesitated, then said carefully, "She did. Sometimes. She missed him, I think, but she was hurt too. I don't know all the details, but I know she carried him in her heart even when she tried to push him away." Mr. Grayson's face crumpled. His pride collapsed in that moment. He realized his daughter had loved him to the end. Even though he had failed her, even though his anger and arrogance had driven her away, she had still carried him in her heart. And now, through this necklace, through this waitress, her memory was reaching back to him, forcing him to face what he had lost, forcing him to confront the truth. The restaurant felt colder now, emptier. Though it was full of people, all Mr. Grayson could feel was the silence between him and his daughter that had stretched across years, across life and death. He wanted to scream, to cry, to beg for another chance. But all he could do was sit there, trembling, listening to this young woman share fragments of the life he had missed. He asked more questions, his voice breaking. Was she happy? Did she suffer? Did she forgive? And Anna, with tears in her own eyes, tried to answer the best she could, giving him comfort where truth allowed. In that moment, the roles had changed completely. The billionaire was no longer the man in control, no longer the one commanding fear. He was just a father, stripped of pride, desperate for scraps of memory about the daughter he had lost, and the waitress he had shouted at was the one holding those pieces. Her quiet voice giving him what his wealth could never buy, a final connection to Lily, a chance to remember her not with anger, but with love. Anna's fingers gently touched the necklace as if holding on to something sacred. Her eyes softened with sadness, and she took a deep breath before continuing, her voice shaking slightly. She gave it to me before she left this world. The words hung in the air like heavy stones dropping into water, the sound rippling through Mr. Grayson's heart. He froze, every muscle in his body stiff, as if time itself had stopped. His mind did not want to accept it, but deep down he already knew the truth. His daughter, his Lily, was gone. For years he had imagined her living somewhere far away, angry at him, maybe building her own life without him. He had convinced himself she was still out there, that one day she might walk through his door again, maybe with forgiveness in her eyes. But now, sitting in this restaurant, listening to this waitress speak so gently, all his hopes collapsed in an instant. She would never come back, not in this lifetime. She was gone forever, and the necklace was all that remained. His throat tightened, his eyes burned, but he fought hard to keep the tears from falling. The billionaire who had shouted so fearlessly just minutes ago now sat shaking like a leaf, his pride, his power, his arrogance. All of it seemed meaningless in this moment. What was the use of owning skyscrapers, private jets, and banks when he had lost the one person he could never replace, his daughter, his blood, his Lily? Anna noticed his hands trembling on the table, the fork slipping slightly from his grip. She felt a strange pity for him, even after what he had done to her earlier, because in his eyes she saw pain so deep it could break anyone. She hesitated, then spoke softly again. She was like a sister to me, more than that, like family. She told me once that she had a father, a powerful man, but their bond was broken. She never gave me many details, but I could see the hurt in her eyes when she spoke about him, even though she tried to hide it. I think she loved him deeply, but she could not forget the pain. Mr. Grayson lowered his head, his jaw tightening. Her words stabbed him harder than any insult. His daughter had carried him in her heart until the end, but it had been a heart heavy with wounds he had caused, all the shouting, all the neglect, all the times he chose money and power over family. It all came crashing back, and he realized too late the cost of his pride. He wished he could turn back time. He wished he could erase the angry words, replace them with love, replace them with the care she had begged for, but wishes were useless now. Did she suffer? He asked in a voice so low it almost cracked. Anna blinked back her own tears and shook her head. She was strong. Even when she was in pain, she smiled for others. She helped me when I had nothing. She never complained. Even when life was hard, she faced it with courage. Her voice trembled. But I know she longed for her father. She longed for his love. She just never found the strength to go back to him. Those words shattered him. Mr. Grayson pressed his hand against his mouth, trying to contain the sob that wanted to escape. His chest burned with guilt. He had always believed he had time, that pride could be fixed later, that anger could be forgiven with enough years. But now time had betrayed him. Forgiveness had slipped away. He would never get to tell her how much he loved her, never get to hold her again, never get to say the one word he had always refused to say, sorry. The guests at the restaurant watched quietly. Though they did not understand the whole story, they could sense something heavy unfolding. The once proud billionaire was no longer towering above everyone. He was just a broken man, and the young waitress standing before him held the truth that had crushed his world. Anna looked at him and felt her own heart ache. She remembered Lily's laughter, her gentle advice, the warmth of her hugs. She wished she could bring her back, for his sake, for her own. But all she could do now was share her memories, keep Lily alive through words. She gave me this necklace, Anna said again, her fingers curling around it tightly. She said, keep it, remember me, and let it give you strength when you feel weak. Her voice broke. I didn't understand then how much it would mean, but now it's all I have left of her. Mr. Grayson's eyes followed every word, his chest rising and falling heavily. He wanted to beg her to let him hold it, to see it up close, to trace the engraving with his fingers. But he knew it wasn't just jewelry anymore. It was a piece of Lily's soul, and it now belonged to Anna. The truth crushed him but also humbled him. For years he had believed himself to be untouchable, invincible. a man who could shape the world with money and influence. But here he was, sitting in front of a simple waitress, realizing that his entire empire meant nothing compared to a necklace, compared to a daughter's love, compared to the chance he had lost. The reality was harsh. He had everything, yet he had nothing. The restaurant's golden lights seemed dimmer now, the air heavy. His mind kept replaying the last time he had seen Lily, her tears, her trembling voice, her necklace glinting as she walked away, and now he knew she had carried that same necklace until her final days, still holding on to the love she could not fully let go of. Even when he had failed her, it was unbearable, but it was also a strange kind of mercy, because it meant she had not forgotten him, even when she should have. Anna's voice softened as she added one last detail. She told me once, "Don't ever let pride keep you from the people you love, because one day it will be too late." I didn't understand her pain fully then, but now I do. Her words struck him like thunder. He buried his face in his hands, silent tears finally escaping. The billionaire who had once believed tears were weakness now cried openly in front of strangers, because he could no longer carry the weight of regret alone. And in that moment, the whole restaurant seemed to understand. They did not see a rich man anymore. They saw a father mourning a daughter, a man broken by love and loss, and the waitress holding the necklace became the bridge between two worlds. The world of arrogance and power he had lived in, and the world of love and compassion his daughter had chosen. A world he had only now begun to see, though far too late. Mr. Grayson sat frozen at the table, his face pale, his eyes wet, the mighty walls of his pride collapsing around him. For so many years he had walked with his head high, believing no one could touch him, believing money and power gave him control over everything. Yet here he was, broken by a memory, broken by a necklace, broken by the truth that his daughter had left the world carrying wounds he had given her, guilt wrapped around him like chains, heavy and unshakable. The sound of Anna's gentle voice still echoed in his ears. She had told him of Lily's kindness, her courage, her pain, and every word cut deeper into his soul. He thought of the cruel things he had said to his daughter, the nights he had chosen work instead of family, the moments he had let anger win instead of love. Each mistake now replayed in his mind like a punishment. If only he had one more chance, one more moment to tell her how wrong he had been. But life had already closed that door, and no wealth on earth could open it again. For the first time in decades, he lowered his head in shame. His hand trembled as he reached for the glass of water, but he could not even lift it to his lips. His body felt weak, like he was carrying a mountain on his shoulders. He glanced at Anna, the very girl he had shouted at not long ago, and his heart ached even more, because he had repeated the same mistake, letting his anger destroy someone who did not deserve it. The pattern of his life, the pattern that had cost him his daughter, was still inside him. Slowly, he pushed back his chair, the legs scraping the floor, the sound startling the quiet restaurant. He stood up, towering as always, but his posture was different now. There was no arrogance in the way he held himself, no fire in his eyes, only sorrow. He turned to Anna, his voice low and trembling. "I am sorry." Two words he had never said easily, two words that felt heavy on his tongue, but this time they came out with sincerity. Anna blinked in surprise. She had expected more anger, maybe coldness, but not an apology, not from him. Her lips parted as if to respond, but no words came out. She could see in his face that this was not the voice of a man trying to save his pride. This was the voice of a man carrying regret too deep to hide. He repeated softly, "I am sorry for how I treated you, for shouting, for humiliating you. You did not deserve that." His apology was more than just about tonight. It was as if he was speaking through Anna to his daughter as well, apologizing to both at once. His voice cracked as he added, "I lost someone because of my pride. I will not make the same mistake again." His hands shook slightly as he pressed them together, as if trying to steady himself. The staff and guests looked on in silence, shocked at the sight of the billionaire bending, even in words, to someone he had insulted only minutes earlier. Anna's heart softened, though the pain of his earlier outburst still lingered. She could see that his regret was real, and she remembered Lily's words, "Don't let pride keep you from the people you love." Maybe this was what Lily had wanted. Maybe this was the lesson she had left behind for him. Anna nodded slowly, her voice quiet. "I forgive you." Those three words washed over him like a wave. His chest loosened, and for the first time in years, he felt something shift inside him. Forgiveness did not erase the past. but it gave him a chance to start again, to change. He looked at Anna with gratitude, his eyes glistening. "Thank you," he whispered. He sat down again, but this time he did not sit like a king. He sat like a man humbled, a man ready to listen. He leaned forward slightly, his voice softer. "Tell me more about her. Please, I need to know. I need to remember her as she was." Anna began to share little details. How Lily laughed easily, how she would sit with her in the park, how she never turned away someone in need, and with every detail, Mr. Grayson's heart broke and healed at the same time. He smiled faintly through his tears, proud of the woman his daughter had become, even without him. As he listened, he realized something that shook him even more deeply. His daughter's spirit lived on, not only in memories, not only in this necklace, but in the very kindness she had planted in Anna. This young waitress had carried Lily's light forward, offering him a second chance to honor her. A chance he could not waste. He made a silent promise to himself that he would not let anger and pride rule him again. He would live the way Lily had wanted, with compassion, with humility, with love. The weight of guilt remained, but instead of crushing him, it began to guide him. It became the fire that pushed him toward change. He looked at Anna again, his voice steady this time. "I want to help you. I cannot change the past, but I can do something now. Let me support you, your family, whatever you need." Anna widened her eyes, taken aback. She shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I don't need anything. I only wanted to honor her memory." But Mr. Grayson placed a hand over his chest, his voice firm. "Please, let me do this, for her, for Lily." The guests whispered softly among themselves, moved by what they were witnessing. The billionaire once known for arrogance was changing before their very eyes. Anna hesitated, then nodded slowly, realizing that maybe this was part of Lily's plan all along. That kindness would circle back, that broken hearts could still be mended in unexpected ways. For Mr. Grayson, the night had begun with anger and ended with transformation. He had walked in ready to command respect, but he was leaving with something far greater: humility, forgiveness, and the chance to finally live differently. The guilt of losing Lily would never leave him, but it would no longer destroy him. Instead, it would shape him into a man she could be proud of, a man who would honor her memory through every good deed he chose to do. And as he sat quietly, his eyes on the necklace one last time, he whispered inside his heart, "I will not waste what you left behind, my Lily, I promise." The restaurant that had once been filled with tension now felt strangely calm. The guests who had watched everything unfold no longer whispered. They only looked with quiet curiosity. The waiters who had been frozen in fear were now moving more gently, almost respectfully, as if they too sensed that something important had changed. And at the center of it all sat Mr. Grayson and Anna, two people from different worlds, one a billionaire with all the wealth a man could dream of, the other a simple waitress trying to survive. Yet in that moment they were connected by something deeper than money or power. They were connected by Lily. Mr. Grayson leaned forward, his eyes softer than anyone had ever seen them. His voice no longer carried the harshness of authority, but instead the weight of sincerity. "Anna," he said quietly, "you have given me something no one else could. You gave me pieces of my daughter back. You gave me the chance to see her through your eyes, and for that, I am forever in your debt." Anna shook her head quickly, her hands twisting nervously. "No, sir, you don't owe me anything. I only shared the truth. She meant the world to me, that's all." But he raised his hand gently, stopping her. "You don't understand. You saved me from myself tonight. I came here filled with pride, with arrogance. I shouted at you like you were nothing. But you reminded me of everything I lost. You reminded me of what truly matters." His words made her eyes sting with tears she had been holding back. She looked at him, and for the first time, she did not see the cold billionaire. She saw a father broken by love and regret. A man who was trying, even if it was late, to be better. She nodded softly. She would be happy to know that. A silence settled between them, but it was not uncomfortable. It was the silence of two souls understanding each other. Mr. Grayson finally pushed his plate aside. He had no appetite for food, only a hunger for change. "I want to do something for you," he said firmly, his voice steady now. "I cannot bring Lily back. I cannot undo my mistakes, but I can make sure her kindness continues through me. Tell me about your life. Tell me what you need. Anna hesitated, her lips pressing together. She did not want to appear greedy. She had never asked for help from anyone. Her pride had carried her through hunger, through nights of exhaustion, through days of struggle. But she also remembered Lily's words. Don't be afraid to accept love when it comes. It is not weakness. With a deep breath, she whispered, I want to study. I want to finish school, to build a better life for my family. But right now, I can only work. My mother is sick. My brother still needs me. I don't have the time or the money to dream. Mr. Grayson listened carefully, his heart aching again. This time not with regret for the past but with determination for the present. He nodded slowly. Then you will study, and your family will be cared for. I will make sure of it. Anna's eyes widened in shock. No, sir. I can't accept that. It's too much. But he leaned forward, his tone firm but kind. It's not too much. It's the least I can do. Lily gave you her love, and you gave me her memory. I will not let her kindness stop with you. It will live on through everything I do for you. Tears slipped down Anna's cheeks, not from weakness but from relief. For years she had carried burdens too heavy for her young shoulders. And now, unexpectedly, someone was offering to lift them, not out of pity, but out of love. The love of a father who had lost his daughter and wanted to honor her through good deeds. She nodded slowly, whispering, Thank you, not for me, but for her. She would want this. Mr. Grayson felt a strange peace settle in his chest. For so long he had been haunted by guilt. But now, even though the pain of losing Lily would never leave him, he felt a path opening, a way to turn his grief into something meaningful. He looked around the restaurant, the same place where his anger had burned only moments ago, and he realized how much he had changed in a single night. He had walked in as a man feared. He was walking out as a man humbled, a man ready to live differently. When the evening finally ended, Mr. Grayson stood and offered his hand to Anna, not as a master to a servant, but as one human to another. She hesitated only for a second before placing her hand in his. His grip was steady but gentle. Together they walked toward the door, the eyes of the entire restaurant following them. People whispered softly, not in fear, but in awe. They had just witnessed a transformation, a man who had everything finding the one thing he had lost: his heart. As they stepped out into the cool night air, the city lights glittered like stars scattered across the sky. Mr. Grayson paused, looking up at them, remembering how his daughter once told him she loved the stars, that they made her feel free. He glanced at Anna, who was still holding the necklace, and for the first time in years, he smiled, not a cold smile of victory, but a warm smile of hope. From today, he said quietly, almost to himself, I will live the way she wanted. I will not let pride take away love again. Anna looked at him, her eyes reflecting the same stars, and whispered back, she would be proud. Those simple words sealed the night. A night that began with anger but ended with redemption. A night where a billionaire found humanity in the heart of a waitress. A night where the memory of a daughter healed the soul of a father. They walked away side by side, not as strangers anymore, but as two lives intertwined by fate, carrying with them the memory of Lily, the necklace that shone softly under the moonlight, and the promise that love, even when lost, could still guide the living toward a better tomorrow.